was 16, I was a sophomore in high school. That was the year that I was diagnosed with depression, which was a little strange to me.
We look back on Jordan being diagnosed with depression, we would have never thought that. And especially with me being in high school and working with high school students, I feel he was going through the regular adolescent thing, starting to sleep in a little bit more, starting not to do all his homework, wanting to stay up late at night.
Go JB, go JB.
I was a popular student. I was one that was always smiling, always laughing. If you saw me in a hallway, you would think that's the last person in the world to have depression. So it was confusing to me to be diagnosed and have those emotions when it seemed as though I had everything that I wanted: a girlfriend, playing sports, popular, but still it felt like there was still a hole inside of me and I couldn't figure out why I had a lack of motivation to get out of bed, why I was randomly crying. So when I was 16, I was going to school with a mask on my face, acting and pretending as though I was really happy with the things that were going on around me.
When Jordan was first diagnosed, we really didn't realize what was wrong. And I think from my perspective that I sort of understood that with depression, it sort of gave answers to some things where I think it took time for Earl to really understand that these were the things that were going on and why he was behaving in the way that he was. And for Jordan, I think it was hard at first. He didn't, like in therapy, didn't talk a lot at first to the counselor. Then he began to become a little bit better with it, with talking to her. But when I look back on it now, I don't know really at that point that he really even accepted the fact that he was depressed.
So the way I handled it was that I saw the therapist twice a week. I wasn't very talkative. I was probably 80% honest. The one thing that I definitely wasn't honest about was drinking, as well as taking my medicine. Even though my therapist reminded me 1,000 times that whatever is said in this room stays in this room, I figured I definitely shouldn't tell her that I was drinking and coping with things in a negative way. And when it came to my medicine, I made a mistake that a lot of young adults and teenagers make, is that they take the medicine for a couple weeks, even maybe a month, and they start to feel great. And they figured, well, I'm cured, I'm good to go, and they don't deal with it again, and they stop taking their medicine. With my suicide attempt, there were so many things that were built up and were the foundation of these thoughts of not wanting to be here, to not wanting to be on this earth, wanting to try and take my own life. And I think one of the biggest things was the pressure of being a junior and senior in high school. Is you start to realize that this is when you have to start taking life seriously. Because I wasn't taking my depression very seriously, so when I only had a C in a class, that's when I started to break down. That's when I started to shut down, and I felt like a failure. And the failure was one of the main reasons why I wanted to try and take my own life, because I figure if I'm not successful, if I'm not as good as my parents think I should be, if I disappoint my parents or make them upset, what is the point on being on this earth? There were also social issues. I'm an African American in a predominantly white school. I felt a lot of pressure when I'm the only black student in my classroom, and I felt like there was pressure on me to always have A's, to always try and fit in, when at the end of the day, it didn't matter if I was class president, if I was on the sports teams, if I was popular, I still felt like I really didn't fit in. And the other thing was getting caught drinking by my parents. When I got caught drinking, I felt like the failure of the family, simply because no one in my immediate family drinks. And so because of that, I felt like the black sheep. I felt like the scapegoat. When I had these suicidal thoughts, I didn't know how to talk to anyone because I figured I was the only one who had those thoughts and emotions. And if I told someone, I just figured that the automatic reaction would be I have to go to a psych ward. Now, I did go to a mental hospital during my junior year after I had a breakdown, and I put pills on my desk and I threatened to take them. The funny thing is that when I was in that mental hospital, there were things that I told complete strangers because I knew that they understood where I was coming from. And I couldn't say that to my therapist. I couldn't say that to my parents. I couldn't say that to friends because they didn't truly understand the real Jordan that hated himself, wondered every day whether I should be here or not. The day of my suicide attempt, I woke up just like any other day. And even though at that point I did have depressed feelings, I had depressed thoughts, there were days that I could wake up and forget about them. And that was definitely one of those mornings. And that's when my dad walked in with a duffel bag full of alcohol that I had in the trunk of my car. Now when he dropped that bag, my heart dropped with it, saying to myself, I disappointed my parents yet again, as their son. Someone that should be making them happy, making them proud. All I do is upset them. So what's the point on being here? My dad confronted me about the alcohol. He didn't yell, he didn't scream, but it didn't matter because everything was just numb to me at this point. And although my parents were very honest in that conversation, were very nice in that conversation, that was when I went into my room, like I usually do. Whenever I'm upset or had a conversation with my parents. This time was a little different though. When she knocked the first time, I said, "No, Mom," and then she knocked again, but by that time I was actually out of my 9th-story window. It was impulsive. I didn't plan it that day. I didn't know that it would happen. That night I was flown to the hospital and given 48 hours to live, and then a 40% chance to live after that. And after being in a coma for 5 days, I started to come to. After, my suicide attempt, I still wanted to see a therapist. I still wanted to see a psychiatrist because I still wanted to take medicine and make sure that emotionally and mentally that I was still stable. Even though I knew I wasn't going to beat depression, I knew that I could cope with depression in a better way. Now, one change I did make was having a psychiatrist who did both the therapy and talking part and also administered the medicine, and I think that's something that really helped me out. I think that's something I really benefited from. I knew that 9 stories, it was a miracle that I was alive. So I appreciated being alive. I didn't fall into a bigger mist of depression. I didn't fall into a bigger mist of suicidal thoughts. I just felt as though I felt fortunate to be here. I knew that I had a second chance at life. Now, what I was going to do with that second chance, I had no idea. But I knew that I was going to make it a positive one. I would be lying to you if I said that I was laying in that hospital bed and I couldn't move, I couldn't talk, and I always had a positive attitude. But one thing I always thought was that I have to be at peace with the things that I can't control at this point. And that's something that I really held on to in my time in the hospital, is that I don't know when I'll be able to get out of a hospital bed. I don't know if I ever will, if I'll ever get into a wheelchair, if I'll ever be able to get out of a wheelchair, if I'll ever walk again. But I just wanted to be content with how my life was and try to help other people so that it didn't get to that point for someone else. Because I never want anyone else to go through the 5 months and the grueling pain and frustration that I did after my suicide attempt. So that was probably my main motivation to get healthy and to take my depression more seriously, is to not only make myself better emotionally and mentally, but also get myself to that point so that I can help other people out as well. With my depression, it's very important to have a healthy emotional balance, and the best way to find that is to know yourself, to realize who you are as a person and what really makes you happy. And that includes, for me, going out with friends, watching movies with my girlfriend, being able to hang out with my parents, to be able to be around people. I'm a people person, so I love being around people. Working out is huge. I love being able to work out, to physically still get better. Even though I'm able to walk, I still have a long way to go to physically be where I want to. It's very therapeutic to be able to tell my story, knowing that it's helping someone else and knowing that I'm making a difference and adding a positive light to society, which is something I never thought I would do before.
Really drew even closer, if that could be possible. But I think a big part of this was Jordan really, again, accepting that he did have a mental health problem.
I have the same depression that I had before, but the way that I cope and deal with it is in a much positive way than I did before. I don't have thoughts of wanting to try and take my own life. Do I question, how am I going to get through this day? Why am I here? Yeah, I definitely have thoughts of that. But what I do with those thoughts is different, and I think that's what's the main difference, is the coping abilities that I have now and the honesty that I have in being able to verbalize my thoughts and emotions with my depression. We're all going through different problems in some way, And it's not necessarily the situation or your event that got you down, that made you upset, but it's how you perceive it and it's how you handle it. The main message is that you're not the only one going through these problems and ideas and these situations, but you can verbalize them and you can cope with them in a healthy way to get you through that. And that's basically what I want kids to understand. That's something that I didn't know. I didn't know that there were other people going through the same type of issues, the same type of problems, that there would ever be anyone else that would have suicidal thoughts. I wish I did speak up about my emotions, about my feelings, because I could have heard someone else say, well, I go through those struggles as well. I could have heard someone else saying, you know, I have stress, I have anxiety, I had those thoughts at one point. So in a way, I wish I would have verbalized that.